Okay. Alright. Oh, I don't know how to go about this, but here we go. So this is my PvP tier list for the month of August, right after G Dahlia. So this is about a week after G Dahlia has been out. So I've had some time to fight her in arena and just learn more about her pros and cons. So first disclaimer is that everybody in this tier list is to be assumed 6-star, because if they're not 6-star, then that changes a whole bunch of stuff. Also, other disclaimer is that this is based on my experience at rank 1 masters level PvP. Like, who is meta, who gets the job done in rank 1 PvP in global. So first off, you've got Demiurge Asti. She's still great. Absolutely crazy S3 damage. She can bust through any tank comp with her ignore defense on S3. I don't see them ever making a more powerful AoE unit with her revive. She is just crazy good. Still got Demiurge Dracan in S tier. She's still good for what she does. She's the best extinction unit we got. She's a direct counter to Demiurge Asti. She's still very annoying if you put her on cowards for those counterattack procs. She's even more deadly with Monad Eva for the HP buff. Just one of the best bruisers that you'll have in the game. Solid S tier. Demiurge Stella still gonna probably always be S tier. I don't see anybody coming out with another unit that does her job better. Anytime that you get debuffed, she's gonna counterattack AoE the entire team, and it hurts real bad. So she's like the counter cleave. Any kind of Notia cannon comp, she just completely slaps back. So she just shuts down an entire avenue of speed cleave. Demiurge Vlada, still the king of speed, queen of speed, my bad, because she has the highest speed cap of all units in the game. At 6 stars, she gets the speed buff with the highest base speed in the game of 154. She cannot be outsped. So her S3 lands a debuff, which makes her the best Notia procer in the game. Demiurge Vlada and Notia combo will probably never go away in its entirety, even though they keep bringing out more and more units to try to shut it down because it was so dominant for so long. But for what she does, she will always be S tier. Also, her decrease all priority gains by 50% is incredibly good. There's a lot of times where people take this for granted because it really slows down Demiurge Dracan, and it allows you to get around the revive mechanics a lot of the time of Asti. S tier unit. I'll come back to Gnosis Dahlia because she's kind of like the main point of this whole tier list and the meta that we're currently in. Cannon, still S tier. She's just annoying AF. Everybody knows why. Tanky as all get out. Crazy damage. Counterattacks the enemy with the highest attack. She even is somewhat a counter to Gnosis Dahlia because the fact that counterattacks cannot be counterattacked. So if your cannon gets triggered as a counterattack and hits Gnosis Dahlia, because usually Gnosis Dahlia has the highest attack of the enemy team, it will get her under 70% HP within her killing threshold, and she cannot counterattack you to get her shield back. So Cannon is incredibly good still, even in this meta. She still can survive a lot of Asti nukes. She's just nuts. Perma S tier unless they do something. Main still S tier. Speed imprint allows you to have the highest speed in the game. AoE, revive, and skill cooldowns. Been here forever, probably will still be here forever unless they make like a Demi unit that does exactly what she does, but even more crazy. Monad Eva, still here for probably ever. At 6 stars, she shuts down non-immunity versions of the Demiurge Vlada and Notia comp. Dual attack is still really good for bursting down some of these tankier units. Invulnerability on S3 and speed buff is still really, really annoying. Like if you're really, really tight on speed and the enemy just so happens to outspeed you and put up the wall and then you rage, she's really good at that. The S2 cleanse, so there's a lot of debuffs floating around in arena right now, and she can cleanse essentially anything that's 2-turn debuff or less. So trying to freeze stuff, or if you're not paying attention and you accidentally cancel one of your agile counters or agile response, what's the word I'm looking for? Skills that can't be agiled against, and then you accidentally use like a Notia or a cannon which counters that, and then she can still cleanse the debuffs. You really have to pay attention when Gnosis Dahlia and M-Eva are on the field together, because you can screw up royally. And then Notia, she's still S tier in my opinion. There's times I still use her even today, even in the Gnosis world that we're living in. She's still an insane out of turn, just power nuke. But it's almost impossible to run her in today's day and age without having her on immunity. So I run mine on immunity and augment. She does plenty of damage because now we are kind of in a bruiser meta, and if you are going up like a full tank down bruiser team, you're going to go D-Asti most likely to just nuke them down. But if you kind of have a team that's a hybrid a little bit, with some squishies in there that's trying to CC you, hurry up and throw immunity Notia in there, immunity Demiurge Vlada, clean them out real fast and move on. So that's why she's still S tier. She does her job incredibly well. She's just not as omnipotent as she used to be, where you can just throw her in against 99% of all defenses and she just cleaned house. Alright, Gnosis Dahlia. Very complex character to wrap your mind around in the beginning. Then once you have lost to her enough times, like I have this week, just trying to understand what counters her, what triggers her, and just basically the pros and cons of her in general. So her main gimmick is that she cannot take more than 70% of her health, max health, in any one given instance of damage or chain of damage. So that includes the attack that hits her first, any additional attacks that come, or any dual attacks that happen sequentially in order. The sum of all that damage in one go cannot exceed 70% of her max HP. Now the caveat to this is that shields, to my knowledge and from what I've experienced, can go above 100% of your HP. So what this means is that if you have an insanely high attack, Gnosis Dahlia, and she generates a shield, that shield can in theory be 3 times her max HP. Albeit it only lasts for 1 turn. But I've seen a Gnosis Dahlia, mine in particular, when I was running her on Revenge set, she was able to eat a Demiurge Asti nuke and the shield was still there. So that's crazy. And that's how that tends to work. So she can essentially solo teams that are not aptly prepared to fight her, or if you take out key units of the attacking team that are meant to deal with her, she just goes crazy. Ways to counter her. CC. Regular Dahlia's freeze is amazing because it can freeze her When she gets frozen, she cannot counterattack, she cannot put up her shield. So that's an amazing way of locking her down. And original Dahlia's freeze cannot be counterattacked, or it cannot be agiled against. So Eva cannot proc her S2 and cleanse it. Akari, amazing counter. Same mechanic, cannot be agiled against. So again, Eva cannot cleanse the unblockable, or the buff block that Akari puts up there. And then the two of them put together, if you run Dahlia first, apply the freeze, Akari also has the ability to extend debuffs. So you can extend the freeze for 2 turns, allowing you even more time to deal with Gnosis Dahlia. And you can focus on the rest of her team. So that combo is really, really good for dealing with him. The other way that's really good at dealing with Gnosis Dahlia is counterattacks. Because counterattacks cannot be counterattacked. So if you de-Stella into her, you'll do more than 70% of her health, but then Gnosis Dahlia cannot counterattack the de-Stella to put up her shield, because Gnosis Dahlia applies her own shield whenever she crits. Not when she gets crit, when she crits. And she counterattacks when she gets crit. And then that crit that you do during your counterattack is what procs her shield. So by counterattacking her, she cannot put up her shield in time. Therefore, if you counterattack her and then you have a turn before the Gnosis Dahlia gets a turn, you can just hurry up and kill her before she gets time to use an attack and put up a shield again. So those are the best ways to deal with Gnosis Dahlia. If you don't have one of those ways to deal with her, you might as well bend over, because she's going to steamroll your entire team. She's crazy good. So the fact that she merely exists is what's defining the meta. Because if you try to be like, oh, there's Gnosis Dahlia in this defense, I'm just not going to worry about her, and I'm just going to use my speed cleave. I'll kill 3 out of the 4 units and I'll handle her. No, you won't. You have to have a very specific team comp to handle her. And that is what is annoying for me, because I love to just, no brain speed cleave into things. But it's healthy for the game because it makes you think, it makes you have to diversify your comps. It kind of sucks that this power of hers is locked behind 6-star, but that's the nature of the game we play. If she's not 6-star, she's like C-tier unit. Because the hubris buff that she has is what allows her to have this kind of survivability. She has it 100% uptime at 6-star. If you're not at 6-star, you basically have to build her on max speed, trying to get a turn to get the buff. So she is designed to be a whale PvP unit, and that's fine. That's what she's there for. They gotta make money. She's incredibly fun, and she defines the meta in her current form. And quite frankly, once you get used to her, she's not that bad to deal with. But I had to wipe the dust off my Akari. I had to wipe the dust off of my original Dahlia. And it was fun experimenting with units that I had in my bank that I thought would never see PvP meta. And now here they are. They're got some of my best gear on, and it's fun. And the one thing that I've really noticed a lot, especially in the top 5, is that one little tweak to your G Dahlia defense can completely screw everybody else. Like in the first 3 to 4 days after G Dahlia came out, we were all changing our defense by 1 or 2 units every hour, trying to throw people off or find that one little combination that would throw off everybody else. It was a very interesting time. Like, you had to pay very close attention to what team comp she's surrounded by, because that completely dictates how you approach the fight. It's not just smooth brain go in and cleave anymore. Like, you have to think the fight through in its entirety or you will get stomped. So, and you can watch some of my streams and some of my PvP stuff to understand how these fights actually go down. But I think she's healthy for the game. I think she's fun. If we ever do get RTA, oh my gosh, you better pray that you have a counter unit for her, or you better ban her out completely, because she will completely stomp you. And that will be interesting. Alright. I'll focus not as much on A tier, because this block here basically controls the game at this point. Alright, A tier, Akari. She, like I've already explained, she is a 100% M.Eva G Dahlia counter. Doesn't allow G Dahlia to get her shield, and she can't be counterattacked with the S3, so she just takes the debuffs and gets looked at. Amazing for extending freezes from regular Dahlia, and M.Eva cannot counter agile her and cleanse your debuffs. Amazing unit. She's borderline S tier for arena offense. Again, this is very specifically to counter Gnosis Dahlia, but man, is she one of the best. A tier unit all day. Charlotte, she's here just because she helps enable mage comps like Diasti. If you're going up against somebody that's a complete tank down comp that doesn't have Gnosis Dahlia, she's a really good crit buffer, accuracy buffer for mages. Christina, still good. She actually is finding a little bit more viability in defense. There was several of us that were playing with her this week, because whenever Gnosis Dahlia and M.Eva's on the field, a lot of times people will try to proc or use M.Eva's S3 to hide behind a shield. Well, that procs Christina's S2, which cleanses M.Eva's, or basically removes M.Eva's invulnerability, and gives your entire team attack and defense buff. So she's really good against those teams that are trying to hide behind M.Eva shields and then nuke you back. So there's been a time or two where I've got screwed over royally because I didn't realize that Christina was on the field, used S3, I got trolled and dead. Dahlia, again, probably S tier in this meta for arena offense, because she completely shuts down her her Demiurge unit. CC cannot be countered. Then she has another strip and another freeze on her S2. She's fast, so she can freeze Gnosis Dahlia, hurry up, get another turn when you run her on Desire, because she gets priority from using the skill, and then she gets another 40% priority because you landed a debuff when you're running Desire. So she can basically solo her Gnosis form on her own. It's kind of funny that they did herself dirty with herself. That's a sentence. So, A tier for arena offense for sure. Some people even run her on arena defense. They'll run her in tandem with Demiurge Vlada. So some people will run like an immunity Demiurge Vlada, so they strip all the immunity, cannot be countered attacked, and they will speed tune their Dahlia to go right behind their Demiurge Vlada to freeze the enemy team. So she actually does get a little bit more credit than Akari. I think that Dahlia does a better job at countering Gnosis Dahlia, and she has a little bit of arena defense viability as well. Epsilon is still A tier. She's a good, just beefy bruiser DPS that gives herself invulnerability. She also does get a little bit of credit in the Gnosis Dahlia world because her S2 can strip. So if you play your cards right, you can use her S3, nuke the whole team. You'll get Gnosis Dahlia down to under 70%. Obviously she'll get her shield, but how it plays out is, say your Epsilon is the highest attack unit on your team. She goes, uses her S3. She'll nuke the whole team. She will get her invulnerability up. Then Gnosis Dahlia will counterattack into her and do 0 damage. When she counterattack into invulnerability, it does not count as a critical hit either. So she does not get a shield, and you can kill her. So Epsilon is also a very good Gnosis Dahlia counter. Iota, another one of those units that can help shut down Gnosis Dahlia because of stun. Gnosis Dahlia can be stunned, which is just as good as freeze. The only issue is that Iota can actually be counterattacked, so the rest of her team can still do things. Obviously, it's not good against M.Eva, because if you did stun the Gnosis Dahlia, but there is an M.Eva on the team, M.Eva will just cleanse the stun. So that's why she's not as good of a counter to Gnosis Dahlia. But there's less people running there's less people running Demiurge Vlada in their offenses, and she has her immortality buff at the beginning of the fight, so she is still a really good AoE DPS that can deal with Gnosis Dahlia if you take care of the M.Eva, or if the defense doesn't have M.Eva. But meta right now is Gnosis Dahlia and M.Eva are inseparable, just best friends. Kappa, I still have her in here because she can strip the shield off of Gnosis Dahlia, strip all the buffs off of her, do good damage. She also can help put up shields. She's just a tanky unit overall, can wear cowards, but she's not what I would consider a meta unit at all. She's more like if you're in, diamond tier or something like that, platinum tier. She's not too bad. Kuro, she's kind of a tech option. She's more of an arena defense unit just to throw people off. If you kill her, she'll reduce the priority of the entire enemy team to 0. So if you're dealing with combo teams that are speed tuned, she can completely screw them up and allow like your bruiser team to get ahead of them and just nuke them down if they're not prepared for it. So if the enemy's on immunity, she doesn't really do too much. But if you're fighting some lower people who maybe not have as good of immunity sets or build their more meta units on immunity, she can completely screw them up, and it's an easy win at that point. Poolside Regina, high A tier in this meta, potentially even S tier. I got her on A tier right now because I just feel like the rest of the units are just on a shelf all their own. But she's really good. I think people slept on her a little bit for PvP early on, but her kit is actually insane. It was insane before Gnosis Dahlia came out. It's even better now that Gnosis Dahlia is here. Pros: S2 steals all buffs, so that's a direct counter to Gnosis Dahlia. It is amazing for getting around M.Eva, who puts up shields and speed buff. She steals all of that. People that run like Gnosis Dahlia, D-Drac, and M.Eva, and they get all their buffs up, she can just steal invulnerability, penetration, speed, shield. She can steal everything. And when she steals that, she can kill anything in the game. Like, she can just straight up kill cannon with S2. It's so good. It's so good. And even if you don't steal the buffs and there's a cannon on the defense, her S3 with its innate penetration is enough to kill cannon all day long. And her S1 is hilarious against healer teams. So I use Poolside Regina basically every time I see M.Eva and Mene in a defense, because you can just use Diasti to nuke them. And then if some of them survive, like with a little bit of HP, or even if you kill them and they revive, or maybe you miss one and you kill one and not the other, just use Poolside Regina S1. She'll kill one of them or both of them. She gets another turn. use S1 again, kill them all again. If one of them still has a revive, you get a third turn, use S1 again. And you can just basically whittle down these infinite revive teams. It's really comical. I've had stretches where I've used her S1 4 times in a row and just whittled a team down. Like when M.Eva, I've had situations where M.Eva got her S1 burst 3 off, so the whole team had the revival buff, but I was able to get a kill. So I killed them once, takes the revival buff. Attack again, killed the mages, or killed the healers again, resurrection token procced, attack, kill them again. One of them lived, one of them died. Used it a 4th time, won the fight. But all carried by poolside Regina. So A tier, low S tier unit for sure in the current meta. Regular Regina, still A tier. For the same reasons as before, she is a good Gnosis Dahlia counter. Irresistible strip, so she can take all the buffs off any unit before actually hitting them, so she can go through M.Eva invulnerability. Really, really good. And penetration built into the S3, so she can kill cannons on her own. She can basically kill any unit in the game with her S3. It's that strong. The other nice thing is she has the innate counterattack. So like I said before, if Gnosis Dahlia hits her and she survives, she will counterattack into the Gnosis Dahlia, taking over 70, take up to 70% of the Gnosis Dahlia's HP, in which Gnosis Dahlia cannot counterattack a counterattack, can't get her shield up, and then Regina just finishes her off. So, and she has the built-in survivability with her Regina's World buff, so she's really good at taking big hits early. So she's more viable in most situations over her poolside counterpart, just because of her added survivability. Tamara, still very good. She can cool down enemy skills, so really good with dealing with things like Deasty, any kind of passive that has a cooldown. She's really good at shutting down. Like, she can stop cannon from counterattacking because that skill's on a cooldown. Just a really good ranger unit. A lot of people use her on defense every once in a while, just to try to throw the enemy off. If an enemy team's using a bruiser comp and she can outspeed them and they're not on immunity, you take all of their cooldowns off. They're basically sitting ducks, and then you can take over. So she's good on both arena offense and arena defense in the current meta. Just gotta watch Gnosis Dahlia, because guess what? Gnosis Dahlia's passive is crazy and does not have a cooldown. So her S3 does nothing to Gnosis Dahlia, and you will just get counterattack to the face and have a nice day. OG Stella, also good for the same reasons. Buff steal, albeit her buff steal is 100%, but it is resistible. Point counterpoint, Gnosis Dahlia basically has 0 resilience. Most people aren't building resilience on her because she's such a stat hog in terms of attack speed and crit rate. That resilience kind of goes by the wayside. So she's, for the most part, going to be very reliable for the buff strip. She also reduces priority with the buff strip as well. She has the same revenge mechanic as Demiurge Stella. So again, if you get attacked or debuffed while Gnosis Dahlia is on the field, she will counterattack, do the damage, and Gnosis Dahlia can't counter her back. So she is another really good counter unit to the meta definer. That's why you'll see the trend why a lot of these units that I place in A tier are all counters. And then Valentine, she's also really good. I've seen a lot of people having good success with her on offense against Gnosis Dahlia, which is a little strange. But what I assume is actually happening is people are buffing with their S2. They're using S1 into Gnosis Dahlia to do chip damage. So they'll be semi DPS, right? They're trying to do at least 31% HP. Or, you know, in a real world, they would like to do 70% damage. But the goal is to get your HP down. Then Gnosis Dahlia will counter her, kill her, but you push the priority of your highest attack unit. So say it's Regina, or say it's Poolside Regina, or say it's literally any of these counter options that have buff strip. Then they get pushed ahead, they strip the shield, she's within her fatal range under 70%, and take Gnosis Dahlia out. So that's where I've seen people actually using Valentine to counter Gnosis Dahlia. So this is why I think Gnosis Dahlia is a fair and balanced unit. There are so many ways to actually get around her. It's just you actually have to use your brain. And that's what makes her fun. The rest of these units, I don't even know if they're really worth going into. Air actually probably could be A tier because she has irresistible buff strip. Same skill as Regina, so she's probably unfairly placed. She could probably go A tier, but just that's the only redeeming quality she really has. She has no AoEs, nothing like that. Defense, excuse me, no defense, ignore. So that's why I place her a tier under that. Alice has really lost her place in the meta because Demiurge Vlada exists. Ame, you're probably just going to get curb stomped by Gnosis Dahlia. So that's her problem. Diane, I love her. She just deserves to have her own tier, like up here somewhere. Speed Imprint's nice. Immunity's nice. And she would be a really good sidekick to Gnosis Dahlia just because of the big heals, the priority pushes, and the immunity. But again, the biggest issue is that there's so much buff removal going around. And when buff removal and buff stealing is on every corner, immunity loses its sting. If there was some way to do like irremovable immunity tied to her, Diane stonks go through the freaking roof. But yeah. With buff removal on every corner, she just doesn't really pose a threat in the current meta. Edelweiss, she's cool, but not really viable. Damage mitigation really just isn't doing it in the current meta. She does have unbuffable and stuff in her kit, but it's just too slow and not agile response related. Unfortunately, she does have an agile, and if her unbuffable was on the agile, okay, then we're talking completely different unit, because then she could counter Gnosis Dahlia. But that's not the case. The other thing that would make her really nice is I'm pretty sure her S3 has buff stealing, but the buff steal is only if there's one enemy. And in arena, by the time that you have your S3, it's not that viable. Like if it was steals all buffs, AoE, stonks. It would be crazy. Hannibal, she's fallen out of meta. Leo, you're just basically the dude wannabe version of Eva, get cucked. Noah, you're just a has been of the past cleaver. Rin, you're same boat as Noah. Veronica, still decent. She does have buff strip on S3, but I'm pretty sure it only strips one buff, and in this meta where people have like 4 buffs whenever they get up and rolling, it's just not enough to actually do anything. Saren, just a generic healer. Her S3 does give 100% priority push, but in this meta you're basically already won or lost by the time that it becomes viable. The rest of these, Asti's not going to do anything. Eternal is no good in this meta. Maxwell is nothing. I have seen Miro used a lot, specifically by one player. He uses it in his speed cleave offense. I really don't understand how it's working, but he's using it as like a Gnosis Dahlia counter. because her S3 gives her immortality. And she can just sit there and take hits. And I think they're using it in tandem with like a buff extender, or she has some kind of buff extension mechanic, and they're using her to outlast Gnosis Dahlia in some way, shape, or form. But I don't really understand it, and I feel like there's way better ways to deal with Gnosis Dahlia than using her. So unless I figure that out, I'm going to leave her at C tier. Stirrope just makes Stirrope great for once, because she still is no good. Tamamo, she does have the counterattack strip, but again, she's gonna die before she even really does anything of value, and her damage in a PvP setting is abysmal. She's an amazing PvE unit, but PvP not so much. And the rest of these units, nope, 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 nope. God, you're awful. Nope, 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 and maybe someday. So that is my explanation of my PvP tier list. Love it or hate it, there you have it.